Yeye, Akilimali, Funua, Olade. I have 2 Swahili names and 2 Yoruba names. In America, we say I changed my slave name, which is the Oyinbo name, to an African name.
Okay.
So we say that's my African name.
Okay.
I have a slave name, but I don't want to have the slave name again.
Okay.
So
Slave name, ma.
Michelle Paul is my slave name.
Okay.
And I changed my slave name 50 years ago
Wow.
to an African name, which consists of 2 Swahili and 2 Yoruba names. They were given to me at different times.
Okay.
So it's not that I chose 2 Swahili, but my first African name in America was Swahili. My second African name was Swahili. Then when I got my Black American husband gave me the first name of Yeye as my first name.
Okay.
And then when my Black American husband, then he's late now, he wanted to be a Babalao. So he went to Ifa and they consulted Ifa. And Ifa said his Yoruba name was Ayantuga Olade. So Olade became our family name because Ifa said that is his Yoruba name.
Okay.
So that's the history of my name.
We are glad to know that. Agba, we notice you mostly wear this ashoke. You have always been seen with ashoke.
That's all I wear now. Before, when I first came, I was wearing Ankara, Yombuba, but I decided I want to wear the best cloth in the world. And Ashoke is the most beautiful. But as you know, as the best cloth as far as I'm concerned. But as you know, for African fabric, Kente has been promoted all over the world, ahead of every other fabric for Africa. So many people know Kente. But as far as I'm concerned, Ashoke is even better than Kente. But Kente is worldwide. So it's well known. So people used to wear it a lot. But I consider Ashoke the best cloth in the world. So I wear it every day now. I don't wear any other cloth but Ashoke.
Because I can say vividly, since I've known you, like 10 years ago,
Yes.
it has always been 10, 15 years ago.
Yes.
It has always been.
Yes.
Can you recall the actual time you decided to be wearing ashoke?
Well, I can't really. But since most of the time I've been in Nigeria for 45 years. So I can only guess. 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah, because I decided it's the best. So I started wearing nothing but Ashoke.
Every other person will prefer to stay in America. So why do you now choose to be in Africa?
Okay, now, by the time I was 9 years old, in America I was living, I said, my children can never grow up in America because of the racism. I said I was 9. I said I can't raise my children to suffer like I'm suffering because of my black skin. Then by the time I was 13, I went to Harlem, which is the black section, a big black section in New York City. It's the biggest black area. And they have a street where they put tables, they sell things from tables. People will be selling different things. I saw one table, Yoruba Temple. Now these are Orisha Black Americans who are practicing Orisha religion in America. So I said, Yoruba Temple. So that Black American said, Yoruba is the best language and the best culture in the world. I said, okay, I want my children to have the best language and the best culture in the world. I will go to, I knew that Yoruba is in Nigeria. I will go to Nigeria. Now, I've always been a prayerful person. So I said, God, I know I can trust that if it's your will, I can go to Nigeria. Now, I was in San Francisco when I was older. And I went to a Nigerian Council General's party. The Nigerian Council General is the official from Nigeria who's working in America as Council General for Nigeria. I told him I want my children to grow up in Nigeria. Now, in the next room, they were interviewing for teachers. I am a librarian. I'm not a teacher. He knows I'm a librarian. But they used to say Nigerian factor. Nigerian factor can be good, it can be bad. He told the person coming from the next room, write her name down. She's going to Nigeria. Now he knew I'm educated everything, but he didn't start asking, let me see your degree, let me see. The Nigerian factor, he decided he's going to make sure I go. Even when I got to Nigeria, they were asking me, because it's teachers. They said, but you're not a teacher. I said, well, your ambassador and your council general sent me. They said, okay, we will put you, you can teach, but maybe we'll put you in the library. So I was working for Federal Government College, Laurel then. I was teaching small. Then they said, let me just make you librarian. Because, in federal government, they will have a librarian. So
Yeah,
I
Agba.
was so happy that my children grew up here. In fact, one of them is a pastor. And when I went to her church she sent me a video of her church, Redeemed Church in California. She was giving sermon. She started talking about her mother, made sure they only spoke Yoruba in the house. And she's so happy that she knows the language and the culture. And she started talking about me. Then she said, well, the Holy Spirit told me to talk about my mother in the middle of the summer. Because my children are so grateful for being raised in Yoruba culture with the language. Because I didn't allow them to speak English in the house. They spoke Yoruba. They only spoke English to me. And of course, the village people taught them Yoruba. And their children, there were 168. They learn Yoruba in 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
The
We learn
children can learn
fast.
it. So my greatest legacy, I feel, is that my children grew up free in Black in Africa, and they have the self-confidence to go all over the world, and no white person can make them feel like nigger. And even though they're in America, they know they're Black and proud. They're proud. They're not like most of Black Americans who are not proud. They're like, we're descendants of slaves. We're like this. Because the white people beat us down because we're their slaves before. So I'm happy. That's my greatest thing, that God has blessed me, that my children are Yoruba children and they married Yoruba. And so I'm very happy.
All right, Yagba, we are glad you are fulfilled. But how has been your 80 years journey, ma?
Well, it has been wonderful. Oluwaseun, we thank God, because there are many Black Americans who want to come to Africa, but they can't come. They feel they can't come. No job, no connection, no something. Because the racism makes most of us want to go back to Africa. Well, we don't have the means to go, as we can see it, or we don't have enough money saved to go. But I want to note that now more Black Americans than ever before are moving to Africa, because they've decided they're going by any means. So my greatest fulfillment, as I told you, is my children, raising my children in Africa, proud and Black, with the culture, with the language. So the 80-year journey is my back to Africa journey. And they know me on the net. I'm always saying back to Africa, because I'm trying to encourage other people, they should go back to Africa. Because we all came here as slaves, whether Caribbean or South America or anywhere. Our origin is Africa. And we will be better off if we come and build Africa instead of building those other white countries like UK and so forth.
Okay, Yagba, then who are those people you can mention that have greatly helped this your journey of back to Africa?
Well, as I told you, that Nigerian Consul General is one,
Okay.
even though I don't remember his name right now. But he really helped me by saying, let us hire her, because he was impressed that I want to go. And then um, Dr. Bayo Adebwale, as you saw him here, he has been a great inspiration. he decided to set up an African Studies library, the first of its kind, based in the rural area. Now, as you know, African Studies normally is university. You don't have it in the rural area.
You sure?
So we are the first rural-based African Studies library in Africa. African Heritage Research Library and Cultural Center at the Ipo Village, Ibadan, via Ibadan. So he said he would set up that library in the village. Now, many people discouraged him. They said, how can you have a research library in the village? Nobody will come there. But if you know something about African studies, because we're a special library, we're not a general library, we're an African studies library. So anybody interested in African studies, not only do they have to have a library, they have to go to villages because the custodians of the culture are not in the cities, they're in the village. So it is actually an ideal place for an African studies library to be because we can bring, if they want drummers, we can bring the drummers. If they want to know the history of the village people, we call the village people. So we are the best location for African studies because everybody must go back to the village eventually if they're doing African studies. Now, Dr. Bayo Adebwale said he would set up that library. So people said, no, you should do it in Ibadan. He said, no, I want it to be in Adibo village. I want it to be in the village to also benefit the village people. At the same time, I know that people coming, they will want to know the culture of the village people. They're not coming for city people. They're coming for African study, the culture. So when he set up that library, everybody was saying, how can he do it? He can't succeed. But as you see, Dr. Bayo Adebwale has 12 buildings there. These are donations from hundreds of people. We have our Pe Babalola building. He built one building there. So big people and small people and teachers, they gave small donations so we could build our buildings for this first African studies based uh, library in the village. So we have grown to be 100,000 volumes. So he is my greatest influence because he enabled me to practice librarianship to the benefit of the masses as well as people researching from the universities that come because we're the first African Studies library on the continent based in a rural area.
Very well. Good to know. Now, in conclusion, Yagba, who are those you wish to appreciate?
Appreciate. Well, Dr. Bayo Adebwale is my greatest motivation because he loves Africa so much. He's an African novelist. He's written 11 books, novels, and poetry books also. So he is my greatest inspiration. Now, we talk about history. I wasn't in America for nothing when I say that. I mean, I was influenced by Marcus Garvey.
Okay.
Marcus Garvey is a great black leader. He organized the largest black movement in the black world in the 1920s. And his motto was back to Africa. In 1920, he said that blacks should go back to Africa.
Okay.
Malcolm X is the other one that said that blacks should go back to Africa. So I got these ideas from somewhere. I got them from Malcolm X and from Marcus Garvey. These are great black American leaders who knew that Africa is the home for all black people. And eventually they should go and set up a nation. They were even talking about setting up a nation in Africa for former slaves from Africa coming back to Africa.
Good to hear your perspective about African. And I believe with this, most of our Black American will be encouraged to come back home as Yagba has done. Please, can you please tell us your name before we go again?
Yeye, Akilimali, Funua, Olade, two Swahili names, two Yoruba names. Ó dàbọ̀. Olúwa bùkún yìí o, ẹ ṣé o.
Ẹ ṣeun.
Ọwọ́ a máa ròkè o.
Àṣẹ
Ẹ ṣé o.
Èdùmàrè.
Àṣẹ wo?
Àṣẹ wàá. Ó dàbọ̀ Yagba.
Ó dàbọ̀.